we've been talking about MMOs. Me being the casual player who have tried World of Warcraft before, Guild Wars, a lot of games, but have never really been captured by MMOs. Why is World of Warcraft so special? What is it that makes it different? Besides being a Blizzard game, of course.
Well, there is that. It's a Blizzard game. They had a huge fan base to begin with from the World of Warcraft games, and of course StarCraft. So everybody was looking forward to this game to begin with. What Blizzard did, I think the difference between World of Warcraft and the MMOs that came before that, because you had games like EverQuest, and you had games like Lineage and Dark Age of Camelot and even Online. Most of them were known to be quite hardcore games. You had to play and play just to level your characters, for example. You had to put in so much time. And the market for MMOs were really, really small before World of Warcraft came. And they streamlined everything. They took the good parts from a lot of these games.
But that's what amazed me the most, and still to this day does, that I know tons of people who wasn't even playing PC games before, and they're playing World of Warcraft now. And if you're just looking at World of Warcraft, especially at the end level stuff, it's a really hardcore game. I mean, it's so much harder to understand than for instance, a FPS game or something like that. So I'm amazed every time I see these casual people play World of Warcraft.
But the thing is, the way they did it when they launched the game, and this has been pointed out, that this is one of the things that people have been analyzing for a long, long time. Why is World of Warcraft so big? And what did they manage to do that older MMOs didn't do? And one of the main points that I've read that I think is very, very important to point out was the marketing. They didn't market World of Warcraft as an MMO. It wasn't an online role-playing game as such when they marketed it. And people just wanted to play a new Warcraft game. That's what they thought it was, more or less. And they knew it was online, they knew they played with other players, but it wasn't an MMO, it wasn't like EverQuest. That's not what they wanted to point out. And I think that was very important and very, more or less, one of the major parts of why it became so big. Yeah. Then of course the hardcore part of World of Warcraft is an entirely different thing. Because to reach that point, you had to play for a long time. When it was released, you got to level 60, and that could take a long time. Back then, it took at least a couple of months to play. These days, it can take like 2 weeks. And you were lured into. You took your time to learn your class, and all of a sudden, you were at the hardcore endgame. Then, of course, the hardcore players, they're not that big percentage.
But that's actually one of the most exciting questions that I have been asked by my friends who play even less than me, is that is World of Warcraft hardcore? And I mean, what is hardcore compared to World of Warcraft, right? Because if we talk pre-World of Warcraft, World of Warcraft is pretty much a hardcore game. But it seems to me like the limits of what hardcore is has just been moved so massively because so many people have begun to play it. I mean, World of Warcraft, as you say yourself, today is a pretty easy MMO to get into, but does that mean that everything else has become even more complex? Or are anyone else trying to do what World of Warcraft does?
These days, I think they are trying to do what World of Warcraft did.
Lord of the Rings, right?
Lord of the Rings Online, for example, was very much a World of Warcraft clone when it was released. Post-release, they've added some stuff that World of Warcraft doesn't have, good stuff. But when it was released, when I sat down with Lord of the Rings Online the first time, it was World of Warcraft all over again.
Okay.
But I think when it comes to the hardcore part of World of Warcraft, people tend to forget that the high-level instances, or the raid dungeons, where these days 25 people get together and play, some of them to get into, it take a lot of time. For example, Sunwell, which will be the last raid dungeon before Wrath of Lich King is released in a couple of months. To get there, you have to put down a lot of time.
And you have to make sure you don't have a Leroy Jenkins, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other point.
Yeah.
But to people still put in a lot of time in World of Warcraft, but they don't put in that much time and that much effort. They still can play for like 20 hours a week and still don't reach those really hardcore raids. So
is it
caters to both.
Yeah, but is it even possible for anyone else besides Blizzard to do this? I mean, some of the popularity, as we just discussed, is basically this being a Blizzard game. I mean, Blizzard has that name today that they can just say, this is a Blizzard game, and people will go out and buy it, just like Rockstar. But is there any other developer that has that kind of name that is doing MMOs? Because I don't see it from even the guys developing Warhammer.
Right now, no. It is also one of the major discussions in MMO circles are what will finally kill or what will finally beat World of Warcraft. The way it looks right now, nothing. There's nothing that can beat World of Warcraft. Mostly because World of Warcraft has become something more than just a regular game. For many, it's a lifestyle. For many, it's the place where they first started to play online, where they met all these people and they joined guilds and they become friends in real life. And even though they perhaps at some point want to try another MMO, like move over to Age of Conan, we saw a lot of people going to Age of Conan when it was released. A lot of those people will play for perhaps a free month, if even that, and then go back again. Because that's where their friends are.
Yeah, and that seems to be the trend, right? Because a lot of the people talking about wanting to try something new besides World of Warcraft. Well, it just seems like to be the general curiosity. There must be something that's better, and everyone seems to be disappointed and come back to World of Warcraft if they don't drop MMOs in general, right?
Yeah, and that's a problem for the business, because when World of Warcraft was released and when they managed to get millions and millions of players, they're up to 11 million now, which is
mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, yeah. And everybody said, just like 1 or 2 years ago, that World of Warcraft opened the MMO business and it opened the market. And in ways it did, but not in the ways I think that people thought at the time. Suddenly, the people with the money, they all wanted an MMO. They all wanted to
still do
want a piece of cake. Yeah, they do, but I think these days people realize that they're not competing against World of Warcraft in the same way.
No.
They're competing against each other.
Yeah.
Because World of Warcraft will be there for a long time. Personally, I think the only ones that are going to be able to beat World of Warcraft is Blizzard themselves. Not in, perhaps, you were saying, we were talking about this earlier, and you said that the only thing that can beat Blizzard right now is Blizzard themselves by bringing out another MMO.
And they're working on some kind of new MMO.
Yeah, next gen MMO.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is yet. But I think in some ways the only ones that can kill World of Warcraft in another way is Blizzard themselves, because if they start alienating too many of their players.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing things in Wrath of the Lich King that I personally think could alienate a big part of their player base. I'm not going to say it's the WoW killer, because people are doing that for every nerf on the forums.
Of course.
Say this will kill World of Warcraft, but you have stuff in there like the 10-man and 25-man raids becoming the same thing, which would cause a lot of problems for guilds, again, like they did when they changed it from 40-man to 25-man with the release of Burning Crusade. We have the achievement system, which I personally hate. I don't want it in the game.
You're about the only one, though.
Yeah, I'm more or less the only one. But I think that the achievement system, I think it can bring a certain feeling to the game, or a certain elitism to the game that I think a lot of people won't appreciate. And they keep focusing so much on the arena. I think that can alienate players over a long period of time.
But again, it just seems so wrong, because it's Blizzard we're talking about. Blizzard, who are notoriously known for just putting everything through extensive beta tests. And don't you think they will, work out the small kinks in Wrath of the Lich King 2 before it's released?
Well, the small kinks, the bugs and the kinks, yeah, sure, they'll iron those out probably before Wrath.
But it's more the major decisions that makes you doubt.
It's the major decisions, and it's the way that when you have it in beta and you have these ideas and they sound really good, but when you release it to the public, it might not work the way you intended.
No.
We had that in Warhammer, for example. We had the public quests, which made perfect sense. When I heard about them the first time, I thought, this is a great idea. When I played one the first time in beta, I thought, whoa, this is a lot of fun. We had 20 people there working together to complete this goal. Nowadays, after launch, just 2 weeks after launch, a lot of them are completely empty. People are not doing them because everything doesn't always work out the way they
intended.
The way they intended. Okay. And that's definitely a problem with MMOs. And I think that's where Blizzard could potentially go wrong at some point.
Yeah.
And start losing players.
So right now it's World of Warcraft and everyone else.
Yeah, more or less.